Delon first. Delon has called on the show before, but he happens to be an ex-Jehovah's Witness, so I think his, his take on this might be really interesting. Delon, you are on the air again. What's up, bud?
All right. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going really good. Good to hear from you again.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I used to be a Jehovah's Witness for years. I was a ministerial servant and was working towards being what they call an elder. So a ministerial servant is sort of like a deacon in the church. It'd be kind of equal to that, but I was really super duper zealous. So I was one of those guys who just couldn't wait to get out in the field service and knock on doors, go on Bible studies, go to the meetings, just serve in any capacity I could. I was like a real, soldier for that stuff.
So what eventually got you out of that?
Yeah, so really interesting. So as zealous as I was, and I used to just study all the time, maybe even to my detriment, as far as the witnesses were concerned, because I would go and I would just look at all sorts of information. But I actually I used to work at the Virginia State Police when I lived in Virginia. And a guy that I used to always try to witness to was an atheist. And he was an older guy, really smart guy, really wouldn't argue with me, but just would ask me certain questions that just stumped me, And just enough of that conversation just kind of wore me down to where I kind of saw the illogic in a lot of my beliefs, and I couldn't really defend my beliefs so much. And he really wasn't attacking any particular teaching or any kind of Bible, scriptural teaching or anything like that. He was coming at it from just a very basic level of how do you even prove that a God exists, and we would just talk about that, just that one particular subject. And I just couldn't get this guy to understand, and every question he would turn around on me would stump me because I really didn't have an answer. The guy was really smart, really, wise, and it really kind of took me out of the faith. That just, that on top of other stuff, and then my eyes were kind of open. One of the really sad things was we had a sister at the congregation who was a really good friend of me and my wife at the time, and her son was molested by one of the elders at the congregation. And, they met about, to judge the guy and see what they're going to do with him.
Judicial
he admitted
committee.
He did molest the daughter. And the sad thing was he was not disfellowshipped. He was no longer an elder, but he wasn't disfellowshipped. But then the lady whose daughter was molested really got freaked out about it and smoked a cigarette,
Uh-oh.
And someone saw her smoking a cigarette and she got disfellowshipped for it.
Wow.
So it was really
Aren't their priorities like
strange,
completely twisted around?
Yeah, and I was just, as a bystander involved in it, I was just sitting there thinking, what in the world are we doing to this person,
So let me ask you this. What year was it that you kind of left the religion or the cult?
Yeah, so that was a long time ago. That was back in 1994 when I left.
Okay. I was wondering because I think it was somewhere around 2000. I don't know. I think I stopped going to meetings like 2008 or something like that. And so much has changed since I left. It's like all this new light and all these new light, quote unquote, all these ideas and differences. Like they didn't have cart witnessing when I was there. Now you can kind of stand on a street corner and wait for people to approach you. But when I was in it and when you were in it, we had to go knock on people's doors and come up with these presentations, and it was hard, Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But, with all that doubt going along in my mind and then seeing all of that stuff, it all kind of just caught up to me. And I just thought, this is all bullshit, man. Let me just get out.
What you're telling me, Delon,
the elders.
It's atheist evangelism that got you out of it. Is that what it is? Somebody
exactly. Yep, atheist evangelist. He got me out, man. He dropped seeds of doubt, and really, I thank the guy for my life, because the other thing is, I don't know how it is now, but back then they used to shun you if you looked for higher education. And I was a young guy, got married really young, because the witnesses said, well, because when they did find me, they came to my door. I was a 20-year-old guy. I was living with this girl, and I became a witness. We both became a witness, and we had to get married. So we got married really young. I didn't have any education. I was planning on going to college in information technology way back in 1990, and they said, yeah, you can't really do that. You need to focus mainly on studying the Bible and teaching other people the truth.
Yeah, I don't want to get too educated,
Yeah,
right?
Don't want to get educated. That's a no-no. That's putting the devil's system first.
Yeah, it's so easy for me as an outsider to just call that out and be like, oh, yeah, that's bullshit. Like, obviously, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But, like, I can imagine growing up in that situation when that's all you've ever known, and that you've always been told to trust in these authority figures. I'm bringing this up because, gosh, I saw something on Facebook that made me mad the other day. It was somebody that was saying, like, oh, well, why can't we just say that we as atheists are just, like, superior and, like, we're just smarter than everybody else? Like, why do we have to dance around this subject and pretend like we're just as good as everybody else? And it's just like, because we are just as good as everybody else. Like, anybody born in those kinds of circumstances is going to have those.
And let me, and I did want to kind of bring this up because I think we sort of kind of touched on it already in your conversations, but one of the things about the draw, because you would think this stuff is so kind of crazy, why would somebody like go along with that stuff? Especially if you don't have that background, you weren't raised in it. Like I wasn't really raised in the church or any really religious background at all. But what they do is they kind of have a really good way of teaching you certain aspects of the Bible and of, the history of the Bible and things of that nature that really a lot of Christians aren't aware of. Teachings on hell, the soul, heaven and hell,
Trinity.
Immortal souls, the Trinity. And they bring up a lot of history, Christian history, about how these things actually were formed a long time ago, and it kind of like sheds light on the falsities of Christendom in their teaching, and you kind of feel like you're part of a special group of people that know certain things that the rest of the world are just really ignorant about.
That's so interesting. I hear the same thing from people who used to believe in conspiracy theories. They say the exact same thing. They say, oh, like I felt special because I felt like I knew something that I had to tell the world. And suddenly that gives you a narrative. That gives you like a purpose, right? Like you want to, again, like I joking earlier, but like evangelize, like tell other people about this thing because you have this truth that everybody else needs to know. I can totally see the appeal of that. I mean, as you know myself, I was doing the same thing when I was part of an evangelical Christian group. And it's especially when you're in community that's already giving you all these other needs, like that's giving you, friends, that's giving you goals to look forward to, that's giving you jobs in a lot of cases. There almost isn't a reason to look outside of the bubble that you kind of are a part of because, I mean, why? What's out there is evil. What we have here is good. And you can see that based on, your own lived experiences and stuff. Of course, that's not the experience for everybody that's inside. But, there's for some people, the reason why they stay is because they really enjoy it. I know I did.
Yeah, it just covered. They really just they're kind of like a checkbox religion, but at the same time they're a high stakes religion. So you've got a nice little dynamic going on right there. You've got, look, we're no part of the world. We don't go to these wars that are all in the name of religion and all this other stuff. Checkbox. We don't teach falsehoods. All these biblical things can be checked on, and you can see that the Trinity was a Catholic Church creation back in 325 at the Council of Nicaea. Check. Also, look at all the nice people. You come to the Kingdom Hall, everybody's so super friendly, nice, helpful, all of that. So check that off. And on the other hand, if you disobey us, if you kind of do the wrong thing, then you're going to be separated from all of that.
Yeah, there's a real punishment, a real risk.
And looking at rewards and punishment system. I wanted to actually touch on that because Delon, the point you're making there, I'm definitely picking up on that, where you're talking about how they have some truth mixed into this. Like, yeah, that's true. They're right that hell wasn't really in the Bible as Christians believe it to be now. The Trinity is not, accurate. Like, it was added in later. So they get these little tiny pieces of facts that you can legitimately look up and find to be facts. And that lends credibility to everything else that they say from then on. And something else I've noticed they like to do is they like to take scriptures from like verses from 3 different books of the Bible and then put them next to each other and then read them side by side. That's a pretty common. For example, the way they get the 1914 teaching is through a verse in Daniel, Revelation, and Numbers, right? Those books do not belong together. You can't crush them together and make a new story or anything. That's really what they're doing, right?
Right. Yep.
Well, Delon,
they harmonize it. They say, let the Bible interpret the Bible. Don't try to interpret the Bible. The scriptures interpret themselves.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us, Delon. I know you've called into the show before, but we haven't talked about Jehovah's Witness stuff in particular.
Super fascinating.
Yeah, it's really good. We're going to have to go to some other callers now, I think, but just thanks again for calling in and supporting the show, man.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, so those of you who are new, who are first calling into the line, we have full lines right now, so just be sure to stay on. We'll get to you soon. We're just kind of going in the order. I kind of feel like I have a list of all the callers that are on here. I love that so many people can come on the internet and just kind of share these experiences like this. This is something that just couldn't happen, a few decades ago, and I'm just so happy that we can kind of plug the dots together and be like, oh yeah, this is how all of this worked out. You can point at every little step in the process,
Yeah, it's awesome. I don't know. There's something like, I just love talking to people about their experiences. That's what I do on my podcast too. And I especially like talking to ex-Jehovah's Witnesses because we can relate on such a fundamental level. Like, he's using a lot of the language that, we used back in the day. He was saying sister and congregation and all this other stuff. So just brings back memories.